Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're starting a few minutes late because we had some technical issues, but we got them all sorted out for the most part. So this is, again, our April edition of What Are You Reading, where we're going to talk about our different book recommendations, things we've read lately, maybe things we've read a while ago, recommendations for you. And if you're watching this at home on our Facebook page or on our website or on our YouTube page, please feel free to comment. Let us know what you've been reading or ask questions with books we talk about. We would love to hear your comments. We had some great comments last time. It was a lot of fun. So we also this week, or this month, we did something different where we all read the same book, and we'll talk about that too. Maybe we'll talk about that at the end. We'll do that, save that for the last part of the show.
Sure, that'll work.
And we can dive in and start talking about what things that you recommend we read. So who wants to Sherry, do you want to start? What is the first book that you would like to talk about?
I want to start by talking about Call Baby by Morgan Jerkins. It's magical realism in a way. Basically, the Melancones are a well-known family in Harlem with a gift. They're all born with a caul, which is an extra layer of skin that protects them from harm. So to maintain their lifestyle, they sell pieces of their caul, which is considered healing or lucky. And then Layla's had several miscarriages, and she reaches out to the Melancones, hoping that the caul will protect her latest pregnancy. When they refuse to help, she loses everything. And her niece Amara, who is secretly pregnant and plans on being a lawyer and is also giving her baby up for adoption, vows to destroy the Melancones. What she doesn't know is that the families are intertwined and that destroying them may destroy everything she holds dear. This isn't the author's first book, but it is her fiction debut, and she manages to weave serious subjects like police brutality in communities of color and gentrification while still drawing you into the story. It's not like anything I've ever read before, and I found it really intriguing.
Have you read other books from this author before?
I have not. This is the first one.
Are you thinking about maybe checking it out then? I wonder if, like you said, this is so different than other things that you've read. I wonder if that's...
Yeah, I mean, her other books are nonfiction, so yeah, I might have to try them out and see what they're all about.
Interesting. All right. Chris, what would you like to talk about first?
I'm going to talk also about a magical book. It's Magic Lessons by Alice Hoffman. So this was a nice return to the practical magic world. The first book came out in 1995, and this is kind of like a prequel, which is like a prequel to the other prequel. So this book follows the story of the Owens matriarch, Maria. It is her origin story, and it covers life in the 1600s as a woman gifted in the nameless arts. It touches on the witch trials in Salem and sets up the saga of the Owens family witches. So I had read Practical Magic in 1995. I thought it was an amazing book. So when I stumbled upon this prequel of a prequel, I was super excited about getting to read some more Practical Magic. I really loved the story, and I'm looking forward to reading the one that falls in between.
There we go. Can you tell us a little bit about Practical Magic and what that's about?
So like I said, I read that in 1995. It was a long time ago. So I didn't go back and like try to remember everything about it. Cause I kind of wanted, Magic Lessons to be a story on its own, but Practical Magic, if I remember correctly, is a more contemporary story, that talks about a young woman and she lives with her aunt. And so they kind of, in their modern house, there's this big portrait of the family matriarch, which is this Maria in Magic Lessons. If I remember specifically from 1995, that was a long time ago. I was a lot younger. I remember being really enthralled by the story because it talked about, there was lots of descriptions of like herbs and like home remedies to take care of different ailments and such. And while it's not overly magical, it just really spoke to me back then.
All right. That's always neat too when you have books that come out so much later, than the book before it, or in this case, after it. Sherry, what do you want to talk about next?
The next one is The Girls in the Stilt House by Kelly Mustian. Not sure if I'm saying that right. It's historical fiction. It takes place in the Natchez Trace in Mississippi in the 1920s. It's being called similar to Where the Crawdads Sing. I haven't read that one, so I can't really say if it's similar or not, but that's what the marketing is saying. It's about two girls, Ada, who returns to the Mississippi swamp after she ran away a year prior. Her father's an abusive alcoholic, and her mother has passed away, but she doesn't have anywhere else to go. So she goes back to the swamp. And then one night her father tries to kill her, and a young black woman, Matilda, helps her out. Ada doesn't have any idea how to take care of herself. So Matilda also has a tragic backstory and a reason to hide. So she stays to help out Ada. And the two women kind of make a life together. But if the past catches up with them, they could be in real danger. The book's sad, it's hopeful, it's haunting, it's thought-provoking. The issues of race and social status are relevant to today's society, and I think it would be a great book club choice. Lots to talk about with the book club.
Some of it kind of sounds like a little bit about the book we're going to talk about later as well, kind of some similar ideas. All right, Chris, what would you like to talk about next?
I'm going to talk about Book Charm by Karen Hawkins. Apparently, April was my month for magical books. So this book is kind of a magical realism in a tightly woven story about how community creates family. This book has excellent character development. I couldn't help but enjoy the town librarian, the bumbling mayor. It has a fantastic small town setting. I believe it's down in North Carolina where it takes place. So that was kind of fun. I happen to really like books that have setting, where the setting is predominant in the story. I would probably call this kind of like a fluffy story. You know, it didn't involve a lot of thinking on my part, which I enjoy, not having to read so many serious items all the time. But I really enjoyed that story too.
All
right, Sherry, what would you like to talk about next?
The next one I want to talk about is Liberty by Caitlin Greenidge. It's set during and after the American Civil War. It's about the daughter of a black female doctor. Kathy is the doctor. Her daughter Liberty was born free, and her mother expects her to follow in her footsteps and become a doctor as well. Kathy sends Liberty to college to study medicine, but Liberty wants to study music, and she starts to rebel against her mother. She ends up marrying a Haitian doctor and moving to Haiti with him. Things aren't much better there, though. So it's really a story about a mother and a daughter, and the author based it on a real life doctor. I don't think she had the same issues with a daughter, but it was based on a real life doctor. The writing in the book is amazing. At times it flows almost like poetry. And I think it would be perfect for those who liked Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead. It kind of has the same feel to it.
I really enjoyed that book, so that's a good recommendation. I feel like that was pretty popular too as a big book club book as well. I feel like a couple of years ago. All right, Chris, what do you want to talk about next?
So April is Poetry Month, and it's just kind of a coincidence that I picked this one up to read. Mary Oliver's Felicity. So it's a compilation of poems. I really like Mary Oliver. This particular edition, though, I found to be a little bit sad. All I, Mary Oliver is getting up there in age, and I almost kind of wonder if she was reminiscing or something where she wrote these poems. But I felt a lot of them mimicked how life is as as seasons pass, and many of the poems made me think about how cancer or ALS can steal your favorite people. So I had to read this one a little bit at a time and maybe skip over some because it was making me so sad. And then toward the end of the book, she presents I think you say Rumi. Is it Rumi? I don't really know how to say that, but it's a poem, and it's one of my favorite poems by that poet. And I had to kind of reevaluate what that poem was saying as it related to these seasons mimicking life. And that poem is that ends, "There will be a field and I'll meet you there." I always took it as like, oh, we need to meet with people and talk about our lives. And then when I saw it presented in this compilation of poetry with all this seasons of life, it made me think of it a lot differently. Kind of like maybe the afterworld, and we're all going to be there to talk about things. I'm not sure.
Well, it almost seems kind of relevant to today too, but especially relevant to, when we're also not meeting people or talking with people. You know what I mean? Just because of COVID and other things. I think, that's really interesting.
Yeah, like here we are. We're all in 3 different locations, and
right. All right, Sherry, what's next?
Life's Too Short by Abby Jimenez. I've loved every book she's written. She's written 3. This one's no exception. She's kind of a master. She combines tragedy, comedy, and romance in one book, and she does it better than anyone I read before. This is technically part of a series, but you can read it as a standalone. Some of the characters kind of cross over, but it's not anything where you'd feel like you missed anything. Vanessa's a YouTuber, and she's genetically predisposed to ALS. She refuses to wallow in self-pity, so she lives life to its fullest, all while refusing to undergo tests and medical procedures, since she's sure it won't give her any more time in the world. She's also supporting her dad, her sister, and her brother while taking care of her niece, Grace. And then Adrian is her neighbor, who's a workaholic lawyer. He lives for work. Baby Grace wakes him up at 4 a.m. and he heads next door to see if he can help. So against the odds, they fall in love, but are they prepared for the chance that Vanessa may not live out the year? I love how the author manages to bring awareness to so many tough subjects, ALS, anxiety, addiction, and a mental illness. Such an empathetic manner while she still retains the humor and romance. She's become a must-read for me, so I look forward to her next book, which can't come soon enough.
What else does she write about?
The first book was called The Friend List, and the main character was dealing with infertility, and then the second, and also had a crazy dog named Stuntman Mike that she dressed up in all kinds of outfits, so that was the humor in that one. And then the second book was the Happy Ever After Playlist, I think it was called. And it was about a rock star who falls in love with a woman who is a widow. So they're all just good. And she always ties in a pet somewhere in it. Somebody has a dog or a cat or something. So I always enjoy that.
It's always nice to have a little bit of something a little nice to go along with the really tough topics, right? Add in a little.
Yes.
All right. Chris, what would you talk about next? Oops. Did we lose her? I think we lost her.
Oh.
Are you there, Chris? No. Well, let's wait for her to get back.
Okay.
Do you have any other books you want to talk about?
So Ryan, have you read anything exciting besides our little book club one?
I started a different book, but I want to wait to talk about it until after we talk about the first book, which is, I'll show while we wait, is I have it here. I don't have a picture up, but I have the book right here. This is How You Lose the Time. Oh, I think Chris is back. Hold on. Let's see. Oh, no, we lost her again.
Uh-oh.
Do you have any other books you want to talk about, Sherry?
Sure. Let me try The Russian Five by Keith Gabe. So I'm a huge Red Wings fan, and I remember most of the events in this book. I enjoyed hearing about the behind the scenes of how the Red Wings brought 5 Russians together and how they changed the game forever. They're the first team to have had 5 Russians, especially 5 that played all together on the same line. They were also the first team to really do more passing than dumping the puck in and chasing it. So it kind of changed the game in that way. Teams kind of added a little finesse. The author is a journalist. He helped facilitate contact with Sergei Fedorov and Vladimir Konstantinov, which kind of started the whole defection of Fedorov and then finally Konstantinov. The writing's good. He does tend to jump around with the time periods quite a bit, so you'll get a little of a story and then he kind of jumps back. As long as you don't mind that, this is a really nostalgic look at a fantastic group of athletes. And I even shed a few tears throughout because I remember a lot of the events that happened. So it was kind of a nostalgic view. I enjoyed his writing other than the time period jumping, but it wasn't so jumpy that you couldn't follow it. So a good sports book.
Have you, we have Chris back for real this time. There we go. Can you hear us, Chris?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
excellent.
I think
Have you watched the documentary of the same name, Sherry?
I haven't, not yet. That's my list of things to do.
I've heard it's really good. People I know who have watched it have really enjoyed it.
Yeah, the book was good.
All right, Chris, do you have any more books to talk about?
Oh yeah, I feel like my time is short here, so I was like, I want to jump to the one that speaks to me the most. So I did, I like to read children's books, and so I like to throw in a couple here and there when we meet to talk about books. And I read a couple. I've read a lot of picture books, but one that I thought was super cute, especially this time of year when families are traveling for spring break and what have you. It's by Dan Santat, and it's called Are We There Yet? It's a dinosaur book. So for all the kids who love dinosaurs, get this book and enjoy the illustrations because they're fantastic. And the storytelling is also pretty awesome. This is one of those books that as the kids are reading it, you read the story and then you turn the page. Wait, you turn the book and then you turn the book and then you turn the book. So it's really cute. I think children will love it because it's dinosaurs and it's a dinosaur family. And because it's got this cute little, gimmicky type thing going on.
All right. Anything else that either of you want to talk about?
I have one, and Chris and I have kind of talked about it because I think we've read both of them before, but Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie and then Unhooked by Lisa Maxwell. So they're kind of connected because Unhooked is a retelling of the Peter Pan story. And I read Unhooked first, and then I realized I've seen the Disney movie, I've seen Hook with Robin Williams, and I've read books that inspired by Peter Pan, but I've never read the original. So I went back and I read it. I don't know that I would consider it a children's story. Maybe for children in Victorian England, that was a children's story, but the reading level seemed a little high for your average child. It's extremely dark, and Peter's kind of rude and thoughtless. I mean, I realize he's a little boy, but still. And Tinkerbell's not the sweet fairy from the Disney movie, and she calls the Lost Boys rude names and tries to kill Wendy. So I wasn't so excited about Peter Pan. But Unhooked is a much better choice. It's a teen fiction. And Gwendolyn's a teenager whose mother's constantly moving them around to avoid monsters. So Gwendolyn believes her mother's ill until she's suddenly transported to Neverland. And this Neverland's not the same as the one from the Disney film. It's much darker, and there's no way to tell who's the hero and who's the villain. I couldn't put it down. The characters are really well developed, and it takes the Neverland we knew from the Disney movie and turns it on its ear. I loved it so much better than the original.
All right. And you said you read this book before, Chris?
Is Chris
Oh, no.
frozen again?
We lose her again. Oh, no. Oh, no.
I was like, we talked about it.
It's the technical issues are
Yeah.
plaguing us still. Let's see if she gets... Oh, here. She's back. She's back. Hello. Oh, no. We already lost her again.
Can you hear
Oh.
me?
Yep.
Yes, we can hear you.
Uh-oh.
Can you hear us? Oh, no. Let's see if she comes back. Okay. Well, do you want to talk about this is how you lose the time war while we wait for Chris?
Sure. We all decided to read the same book and kind of see what our reactions to it were. I don't typically read science fiction, and this one is science fiction, so I was kind of like, uh-oh, here we go. But it was good. It's about two characters, Red and Blue, and they work for different factions, and they, I don't know how to explain it. They go up and down this braid of time trying to change things, each with different agendas for who they work for. And I found it interesting that one seemed more on the tech side and one seemed more on the ecological side. So they kind of bumped heads quite a bit, but they communicate by leaving letters for each other. And I use letters kind of widely because the letters aren't always typical letters. Sometimes they're hidden in things.
Right.
But I enjoyed it. For a genre I don't normally read, I did enjoy it.
Chris, do you read a lot of science fiction, Chris?
No, I do not at all.
How did you feel about the book?
So I had to read it in little bits and pieces to absorb kind of what was going on. And it probably took me, maybe about to page 50 or so to finally kind of get into a groove between like the letter and then what was happening, and then switching of the characters to like Red's letter and what was happening with Red. And I found that for this particular story, I had to use my imagination to kind of fill in some of the gaps that I felt were there. So I thought it was amazingly creative. It was inventive, time travel with a little bit of history. I really thought it was amazing. It's probably going to be the best book for 2021, and it's kind of early in the year, but it made me think in ways that I didn't know was possible to think.
See, I really loved it too. I loved it a lot, and I do read a lot of science fiction, but I feel like it's like a science fiction setting, but that's not really what the story's about, kind of, right? Like, it's about these two characters, and so even if you're not like a big science fiction fan, I think, at first it is a little difficult to get into, right? Like,
Yeah.
I feel like they throw a lot at you, and you're kind of like, what's going on? What's happening? And I feel like as you read through it, right, it sort of, you figure it out, and you can, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So a lot of the advertising calls it a romance, but it didn't jump out to me as a romance. Did you guys think it was a romance?
I sort of think so. I would agree. That's how I kind of looked at it.
I didn't until the end, and I realized that they were probably in love, but it didn't play that way throughout the whole thing. I just kind of thought it was two people who realized that they had a lot in common, don't spend a lot of time with other people. I mean, I guess they're people.
Right.
Like, I'm not really sure. And so they, I didn't really think of it as romance up until the end, and then I was kind of like, oh, I guess they're in love, but I just thought maybe they were trying to make friends with each other because they don't have any other friends.
I can see that. I kind of picked. I sort of thought that throughout it. What I like about it is I think something that you mentioned, Chris, I thought was really what I liked is that how you kind of had to use your imagination to fill in the gaps. They talk kind of like, well, what are they, people? Are they like robots? Like they're so advanced and futuristic. It's its own. You don't really. They don't tell you definitively a lot of things, and I feel like you can kind of make those things up in your mind, or you kind of read into it.
Right, exactly. Because there's a few parts where they talk about, well, I evolved into my human form, and then there were other parts where I think one of the characters was like maybe a wolf or something. So sometimes I had to stop and go like, okay, wait, what are they doing here? but I think it was think about,
Right. What I liked about it a lot is I feel like it is a time travel story, right? It's the name of it. It's all about time travel. And I feel like whenever you see a time travel story or a movie, there's kind of like the same cliche things that you see a lot. And maybe, I don't know, maybe it's because I read a lot of, science fiction is what I read most of. But what I liked about this book is even though I feel like it uses some of those cliches, or the book itself is so short, like it has the story it's trying to tell, and it tells it, and it's so efficient and quick that I don't really mind. Like I would be maybe more annoyed if it was like this giant 800-page like book, but I think it kind of used those kind of tropes of the genre and those cliches in a interesting way, and I feel like it doesn't overstay its welcome. Like it's interesting, I really enjoyed it, and like it's over, and then I wanted more, but I feel like it was like the perfect length for that story, and I really enjoy that. Like, yeah, there's no wasted space in the book, right? Everything that happens is very deliberate and part of the. It always works together so well, and I think that's really. I think sometimes brevity is overlooked for something to make it big and epic. Where I feel like this feels pretty epic, even though it's such a concise story.
Yeah, I was probably about like 3.
Oh, go ahead, Chris.
Can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Am I cutting out? So I was
a
about
little
3
bit
quarters of the way. Uh-oh. You're going to lose me again.
You sound good now.
Okay, I sound good now. So I was about 3 quarters of the way through the book when I looked up the 2 authors, because I kind of wanted to know, did one write one character and the other write the other character? And the one, I assumed the female character was writing blue, but I think, the female author was writing blue, but I think she wrote red. And that kind of was like, oh, that's not what I was expecting based on their, biographies and such.
Right. Did you read in the back the acknowledgement section?
I don't think so.
They kind of
did, but I don't.
They both just go back and forth talking about it. It's pretty short, but something that's not really that relevant to the book, but I thought was really funny, is that Amal says in her thanks that she thanks her husband, who spent the early years of our relationship loudly proclaiming his hatred for A, novellas, and B, co-written works. And she says, so I'm really happy and how grateful he was to set these prejudices aside. I thought that was kind of funny. It made me laugh. But this is a really great book. I really enjoyed it, and I would really recommend it. And it flies by so fast. But overall, I really liked it. I think you lost Chris again. But what I want to talk about, as I mentioned earlier, when it was just you and I, Sherry, is another book, which is a book recommended a while ago by Kristen, who's not here with us today, but is usually here with us. And I started reading this back in December, and I never continued with it. But it is Martha Wells' All System Red, which reminded me, reading This Is How You Lose the Time War, reminded me a lot of this book. And I'm like, why do we really need to go back and finish it? Because I was really enjoying it. And so I'm really enjoying this now, too. It's very similar. Again, it's very also, a very short book. But the main character is like this murder bot robot. And it kind of reminded me a lot of the things that we saw in This Is How You Lose the Time War. And so I'm really interested to see where this goes because I'm really enjoying that. But that is All Systems Red by Martha Wells. Not really my suggestion because I just stole it from Kristen.
But you're reading it.
But I'm reading it, and so now I'll make the recommendation now. All right. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I missed out on the end of the discussion on Unhooked and Peter Pan, and I did want to say jump on what Sherry said before I had technical issues.
Sure.
Everything she said about Peter Pan, I totally felt about as well. Like, this is junior fiction? What? No. This doesn't feel like it's meant for children. The reading level was challenging. I had real mixed feelings about the original Peter Pan. And like Sherry with Unhooked, I absolutely loved Unhooked. I read them in tandem in 2018, exactly the way Sherry did. I read Unhooked, and then I said, I better find out really what the Peter Pan story is too. What I loved about Unhooked was it was dark and twisty. I absolutely love the fact that Captain Hook took on all new meaning for me. Like, wow, here we go. I did feel like
cartoonish.
Yeah, right? Yeah, nothing like a cartoon. I did feel Unhooked left me with some unanswered questions, and I really, really.
Oh, we lost her again.
Oh, no. Okay, while we wait for her to come back, we try to figure out what the issue is. Something I didn't do well enough is I wish, in hindsight, I would have done more promotion for this event, talking about This Is How You Lose the Time War, in case people wanted to read along and leave comments and talk about it with us afterwards. So if we do this again next month, we figure out what book we want to read and do that again, we'll figure it out, and I will put it out there on Facebook and social media and encourage people to read it themselves. And then maybe someone even wants to join us and talk about it, one of our patrons, or just leave comments. I'd be interested in hearing what people have to say about that. So we'll have to figure out if we want to do that again. We'll have to talk offline about what we want to read for next month. The other thing is, I didn't mention this, but I'll mention it now, is if you enjoyed any of the books we talked about and you want to see what the books are, you can go to our website, thegdl.org/whatareyourreading, and there is all of the books we discussed here today. And that'll make it's an easy way for you to check what it is we talked about and then find those books here in our library. Chris, are you back? Are you here?
Yeah, I'm back. I'm here.
We had a lot of strange issues today with the internet and getting our devices that normally work for us to work. And so thank you for everyone, your patience at home if you're watching this. We'll have that all resolved next time, too. It's always fun to have last-minute technical glitches. Mm-hmm. Anything else you want to say while you're here, Chris? while you're connected? Or did we already lose you? Oh, no.
No, I'm glad.
Okay.
Thank you. Talk it out for us.
Yeah, so thank you everyone who was watching. We had a ton of people watch last month. We had a small group that watched live and a ton of people who found this video after the fact. So if you're watching this after the fact or live, thank you for watching, and please leave your comments. If you have any thoughts about these books we talked about, we would love to see those as well. And with that, I think we are good to go. Thank you guys for doing this with me again this month, and we'll be back next month as well.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.